As I was messing around with the load lifter, if you try to lift a heavier car, there's a little joint right here where this bends. I don't know if you can see my hand's in the way. It kind of bends back and forth. That works against us every time I try to raise it up. So I'm going to put some glue here and some baking soda and fix this so it doesn't move anymore. And that should help when we go to lift up our next car, especially a heavy one. So that's what we're going to do next. Let's get our materials out. Alright, just like yesterday, we're going to use the same gel type super glue. Apply some in that joint there where it's moving back and forth. And while it's wet, we'll sprinkle the baking soda in there. That will make it dry almost immediately. We'll set it to the side. And when we come back, it should no longer flex there and make it easier to lift our cars. Now let's move on to something else. First thing we want to do is continue prepping our 71 Plymouth GTX. I should have took the wheels off yesterday before we got started and popped the engine out, but I'm going to go ahead and do that now. This car has a really nice shaker hood. That little shaker piece actually moves up and down. I don't think I want to destroy that. Who knows? I might restore this car someday. But I am going to pull the engine out, or pop the engine out rather, just using a little file to force it out. That simple. Came right out. Now we have an engine and a radiator that will go into my parts supplies. Speaking of parts supplies, I made this little engine stand for one of my diorama garages just to show you it's worth saving any parts that you take out. You can use them for something, even if you don't put them in another car. They'll make a good display. All these are just glued on here, and I'll keep a little space on top to rotate a couple different bigger engines around for the pictures. But just to show you how handy it is to save those things, you can create something with all your parts. Alright, our engine is removed. I think when we set this up, we'll probably either take the hood off or just leave it open. Next, we're going to take the wheels off. I like to use this tool. It works pretty good sometimes. Well, most of the time. You wedge it in the back of the wheel there and just gently move this back and forth. It will usually pop the wheel right off without damaging it. And we'll get the other one off too. Take them all off. For some reason that one was so stubborn I had to take the rubber off the tire. We'll see how the back one goes. Alright, wheels are off. We'll get a different set of wheels, and I'm going to mount the axle on the bottom and the front, so when we set the car down, the front end will sit up high like the engine is missing. So this one's ready to continue the patina. We'll put these wheels aside and save them for another vehicle. And as I wanted to show you here, I save all my parts. We'll find some wheels in here to replace the ones we took off later. I just wanted to show you this. A lot of people, I've seen them salvage wheels off their cars and just totally destroy them and not save any parts, but those parts are very handy, so I try to save all mine. Get a little container like this. This is just one container of parts. Alright guys, I want to continue with our GTX, and we want to get rid of this white. I'm going to see if I can mix up a purple color that's close to the original and get this car one solid color. And for that we're going to mix some blue and some red together and try to get this purple color, or something close anyway. Let's see what that does. A lot of times you can just mix the colors you need for a project like this. Might be tricky getting this particular shade of purple, but I'm going to try it. Even as long as we get close, I think it'll make our patina look a little better. I think we need to adjust it a little bit. It's a little too purple. Alright, I think I've got this purple color close enough. I've spent quite a bit of time mixing. I don't think I'm going to get any closer. Alright, I got the purple color. Now let's paint the car purple again. I got a little bit of paper on the windshield there. I'll have to cut off with the razor knife. Same with the back window. I got just a little bit of paper on there I will need to cut off. Now, if you weren't worried about trying to save the vehicle for a future project, you could take a Dremel tool and scar up the bottom of the car and take some chunks of metal out and make it look even more rusted, banged up. But I think we're just going to concentrate on painting it in this video. We might do that with something else that's more messed up. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. When we come back, the whole car will be purple. Alright, I got the Plymouth all painted. The whole body's painted purple. I painted around the shaker hood and left that part alone. I'll take a knife when it's dry and trim this paper off the two windows in the one area. And it's time to just move this aside and start working on another one. Let that one dry. And put our purple paint away that we mixed up. And we'll move on to this generic Trans Am looking car. And we're just going to paint it all one solid color as well. For this car, since we covered the entire body with paper, I'm not even going to worry about putting a base coat. We're just going to make it all rusty. Perhaps it was a car that burned up or just set somewhere in the desert. It's not going to have any of the original paint color. It's just going to be all rust. I also forgot to mention earlier when I showed you the paints, if you're going to try to do this with me and follow along, make sure you're using flat paint. You don't want to use a paint with any kind of sheen for this. It needs to be a flat. And for our rusted car, a car that's going to be all rust, we're going to start with our chestnut color. I just take the lid off, pour a little bit right in the cap. I use the cap as a palette. And this car is going to get the chestnut color. The whole car, inside, outside, bottom, everything you see is going to be the chestnut color first. So I'll get started on that. If you have a similar car and you want the entire car to look rusted and you're following along, at this point you just paint everything the chestnut color. And that's what I'm going to get started on. Even the bottom. I like to do the bottom because the bottom gives you a nice big area to practice on, practice your patina. I'm going to go ahead and paint it. When we come back, it'll be all the chestnut color. I'm not worried about trying to get the same color green. I mixed up a mint green for this other car that we did in a different video to get this patina. It was already painted mint green, and then we did the same thing, put some paper on it, and then made the whole thing a solid mint green color. So I'll probably have no use for that color, so we'll go ahead and adjust this to some kind of green for our truck. Still a little minty. I think we'll put some more of the arbor green in there. Darken it up a little bit. If you're not sure about mixing colors and you didn't go to art school or anything, you can easily look this up on Google, and if you're trying to get a color, there'll be some information on there to help you. If you don't have much experience, there's all kinds of information. That's what this is all about. You can learn all you need to learn, everything you need to learn just about on YouTube. That seems like a good green. We'll go with that. Just like before, everything you see here that's green, we're going to make it a new shade of green, get rid of these graphics. And when we come back, it'll all be one green color, except for the blue parts we are going to paint black. Alright, I'm still waiting on paint to dry. This is one reason I do more than one car at a time. You're always waiting for something to dry. If you work on multiple, you don't have to wait as long. If you like, you can put a fan on your workspace. That will also help dry it faster, but makes a lot of noise. Not good for videos. Here's the green one. We've got a solid green color on there. The more I look it over, I keep thinking, why am I trying to cover the windshield? I do these things a lot, and I just change my mind, and things change as I go. My ideas change as I go. Rather than messing with the windshield or any of the windows, I'm just going to bust them out when the paint's dry so there are no windows. That would be much more realistic anyway. So when the paint's dry, I'll remove the windows out of this one and touch the green back up. The one that's all rusty everywhere is still drying. Our Plymouth is just about ready to work on. I'll have to give this a little more time to dry, and then we'll continue the process. And we can take a look at our forklift and see how our glue is doing. It should be dry, totally dry by now. It dries almost instantly. It's dry. Let's see if it should have made an improvement. You can just dust your baking soda right back in a container and use it over and over again. What doesn't stick to the glue. Yeah, it's not flexing there anymore, so it should work much better when we pick up a vehicle. Alright, I grabbed the closest thing to me, which happens to be this beautiful F-150 made by Greenlight. Let's give it a test run with the new and improved skids on our forklift. Aha! Picks it up with no problem. We don't have that flexibility anymore to mess it up. Nice. It's going to work. Okay. Now let's find those wheels I was talking about. From another angle. Alright, I found some back wheels for our Plymouth GTX. Some of you guys are probably saying, why would I use these good wheels? They're not. They got melted on the bottom. But they look good on here. Couldn't really use them on anything else. They're damaged. And they don't roll. They're just glued on here. They wouldn't even fit with the axle. I tried, but that's not going to matter for our diorama car. It's just going to sit in the junkyard anyway. I'm not sure if that's the wheels we're going to use on the front, but it is going to sit up high like that, like there's no engine. Just wanted to point that out. After studying on it a little more, I think I'm going to just remove that hood and put it in the collection of hoods that I have. This thing will look more realistic with no engine at all sitting in this stance. Alright guys, this thing's giving me so much trouble. Don't be afraid to start over or get a new idea and mess everything up. What we did wasn't that big a deal. I'm just going to cut this whole entire roof off to get this glass out. And then I'm going to glue it back on. Just going to take these and cut it. Seems to be the easiest way to get this glass out of here. I know I messed up some of our previous work we started on, but that's okay. Sometimes projects, you start over, you get a new idea, you just have to resalvage what you have. We're going to make it work. I think it's going to be much better without the windows. I don't know what I was thinking. I'll push this back down, get it glued on there. We'll use our glue and baking soda, probably put some more paper on it and touch up the green. Maybe paint the interior black while the roof's open. I think that's what I'll do next. We'll paint the interior black and all the stuff that was meant to be black. Alright, it looks better already with the black bed liner and black interior. Pretty crazy that I just cut the roof off that way, but it's going to be fine. When we put it back together, it was already junk to begin with. The rest of the roof's probably going to break off as soon as I move it, but I'm going to go ahead and put glue in the spots where I know it's going to go. If we can get it to stay on here long enough to sprinkle some baking soda, it'll be a success. Yeah, it's already broke free. But that looks like a good position right there. The glue's holding it on long enough to apply the baking soda. Alright, we got the roof back on. We got the interior painted black. We'll let it sit aside and cure all the way, dust it off, and then repair the green paint. Easy enough. I like to change things right on the fly sometimes like that, just to show you it's no big deal to, you got to be flexible. You might have a plan, but it's okay if your plan changes or deviates a little bit. Alright, while the truck's drying, I've decided to just go ahead and cut this hood off. I didn't drill the post out or anything, or I'd take the hood off properly. But if I ever decide to do something else with this car, I'll just super glue the hood pieces back onto the hood or JB weld them or something. So I'm just going to use this wire cutter to free the hood. Alright, now we no longer have the hood in the way. I have a whole collection of hoods. Who knows, maybe I'll put this on another car. This is a great hood, shaker hood with the little blower piece actually moves up and down. Probably hard to see, but I didn't even realize that till the other day after having it since 1999. Now that the hood's out of the way, I'd like to go back to our chestnut color that we used on the generic Trans Am. This is pretty dry. We might put another coat in some spots, but it covered pretty good overall. So now we'll go ahead and paint the bottom, the full chassis on the Plymouth and everything under the hood this color so we can make it look rusted. And when I come back, you'll see that we're going to get inside the wheel wells and everything. Alright, the Plymouth is drying. While that's drying, we'll go ahead and work on the truck for a little while. Get all this baking soda back off of here. Alright, baking soda and the super glue's got the roof back on. Windows are gone. It's going to look a lot better without the plastic windows in there. Like I said, I don't know what I was thinking. Now we'll take the same file I had earlier and we'll file away the loose paper. When I come back, that'll be all cleaned up, and I'll touch up the green paint and we'll see how it looks. Alright, I got all the paper loose ends off and everything, but I had to pull all the paper off the hood. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a new piece and apply a new piece of paper to the hood, and then set this one back aside to dry. Alright, if you catch the first video, you saw how we did this already. But since I messed this truck up, we're going to do this one again. Just take your watered down wood glue, glue the paper down to the car. Use a stiff dry brush. Grabbed the wrong brush, but we're going to make it work. Works better with a stiff brush. And crumple the paper up the way you like. I think that's going to work fine for crumpled up hood. Alright, now we'll have to let that dry again. Alright, since everything else is still drying, we're going to work on the generic car. Looks like a Trans Am. This one we're just going to make it look like nothing but a rusty shell. Maybe it caught on fire and burned up or something, who knows. For our next step on that one, we're going to take our watered down burnt umber and give it some washes to make it look, add some texture to the rust, some dimension, darken it up in areas. You can let it puddle up. You don't need to do the whole car, just spots. These washes of the burnt umber will darken up some areas, bring out some of the details. There we go, we'll set that one aside to dry. Alright, our Plymouth is dry enough to do some more detail work on. And next step we want to do is check the body over and look at our wrinkles in the metal. Try to imagine in your mind where the paint would have popped off when the damage occurred. Those places would have been down to the bare metal, and then we want to highlight those with the chestnut color and an artist brush. If you put too much on, just take your finger and blend it in. I do a lot of blending with my fingers on this method. It may seem kind of bright now, but we're going to add another color, some other layers and washes. Sometimes you have to use your finger to just push it into the areas you want it. It's okay to touch this, it's non-toxic. The apple barrel paint, that's another reason I like to use it. Door's really rough. I think I'll just go over the whole area. If you rub some of the purple paint off or something, that's okay. We're going to blend it all in. Try not to get this color on the wheels. I could have waited to put the wheels on. Probably should have, but it's okay. We'll work around them. If you do get paint on them, that's no big deal. Just get something clean and like a clean paintbrush that's wet and keep washing it off if you accidentally get some on the wheels. As you can see how I'm blending it in with my finger, it just makes the whole area look rusty. But we really want those lines to stand out. Maybe it was sideswiped or hit a fence or something, who knows. Same thing on, look the whole car over. We could have put some on the roof, but we didn't. This is the fun part. This is when it starts to really start to look like an old junky car now. Alright, I think I pretty much found most of our lines from the paper. Now I like to look it over and imagine the other spots that would have started to decay, especially around the quarter panels and towards the ground, and then add some in those areas as well. Just dabbing it with my finger to help blend it a little. That looks pretty good for this side. You know, the more time you spend on it, the better it's probably going to look, but we can't spend a whole lot of time on it and make the video too boring. Okay, that's pretty good for the paper. Do these some more areas closer to the ground on this side. If you have to put it on dark in some areas to cover up something that's bare, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and get it covered. We'll get the other color and blend on top of it soon. Alright, I think that's pretty good for our first color. I think our green truck's dry enough for me to handle and go ahead and finish up the black detailing around the bottom. I should have finished that earlier, but I decided to hold off until we got rid of the windows because I knew I was going to mess something up. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the black. When we come back and look at it again, the black will be done. Okay, I've got our Hot Wheel SUV painted black. I even painted the wheels flat black, the whole bottom. The reason I painted the wheels flat black is we're going to give them a wash later to make them look dusty and dirty. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint the green again now that the paper is dry. Alright, this Hot Wheels truck is really starting to look different. Went ahead and painted the taillights in. We'll park it to the side and let it dry for now. And we'll move on to our next piece to work on. Now I want to put a black wash on the Pontiac all over. That'll help bring out some more of the details that the burnt umber didn't. And we'll go ahead and put some other washes of the burnt umber after we do some black wash, and then we'll do a black wash under the hood area of the Plymouth. That would be good and dirty. This is going to help simulate dirt and bring out some detail and crevices in places. Same with this one. This will bring out the lines in the doors and the lines in the dents and make it look dirty and aged as well. This is just a flat black watered down. When you're thinning your paint down for these washes, I would say no more than 20% paint is needed to whatever your solution is, maybe even less in some cases. 10 to 20% of this solution would be paint, and the rest would just be water. Might as well hit the bottom too. We will end up putting the black wash on the green truck as well as soon as it dries. We could put a black wash on the car, on the Plymouth, but I feel that the body doesn't need it. It's so dark already, but we can go ahead and hit the bottom. And just like we'll cover the whole bottom. Now again, it's a waiting game at this point. We'll have to let our black wash dry. I recommend starting a new project or taking a break at this point, because you just put a fan on here and let it dry. This one's dry, and you can tell after 2 washes over top of the chestnut color. All we did was put a little bit of burnt umber in a few places. Then went over everything with the black wash, and it's already starting to look like rust, but we can keep going and get it even more detailed. Our Plymouth underneath is still drying, but you can see the effect that the black wash has done there. It really highlights all the details. Makes things look dirty as well. Like on this truck here, it's not going to be so much rusty like the other 2 vehicles. We just want it to look dirty. There'll be some damage, but we're going to do the black wash on this one next since everything's dry. As you can see, the black wash really brings out a lot of the details, like the door jambs where the metal meets. So we'll put this one aside to dry and work on something else next. Alright, as you can see, I highlighted some of the areas where the crinkles in the paper were. Really starting to look like rusty metal. Alright, now our next step is to take our burnt umber and a dry stiff brush, gently, just a little bit on the end, and then do some test dabs until you're getting just little specks coming off of the brush, and then randomly apply the burnt umber and specks around the car. If you put some on and it seems like too much, just take your finger and dab it off, or blend it in rather. These little specks really bring it to life. Notice I can dab. You're using such a small amount of paint, you can just dab it back on the table or the piece of paper and usually get enough to do some more specks. At least a few times anyway. And get the inside too on this one in some spots. I kind of want to show you this in real time so you can see I'm not using much paint. Okay, that's enough specks on there. Now I think we'll put some specks on the Plymouth. Alright, while those are starting to dry, I'm going to try this Shortcuts paint pen. Caution, if you're going to use one of these Shortcuts paint pens, it's toxic and you should probably use it outside or at least in a well ventilated area. And it's not water soluble either, so it's not going to come off your hands or a paintbrush or anything without solvent. But on this vehicle, I don't want it to look like it's been sitting in the junkyard long. Maybe it just got in an accident. So I want to try to take the silver color and simulate places where the paint came off down to the bare metal. I just want to try to trace our lines on the paper. But remember, this is not as forgiving as the other paint, so take your time. If you get some on the other paint, it's easy enough to touch it up with an artist brush. I think that's good enough. You get the idea. Alright, I think that turned out pretty good, but I want it to look like it's starting to rust. So I think we'll take the chestnut wash and give it a little mild wash around the areas and see if we can get those to look like they're beginning to rust. Bare metal doesn't take long to rust. Alright, we'll have to set it aside. We might have to do a couple washes for that to look the way I want it to. Next, I just want to take some flat black paint and darken up the engine compartment in our Plymouth a little bit so it looks like there's a hole where the engine was taken out. If you wanted to get down to detail, you could take a Dremel tool and some tools and cut it out, but I think just putting the black space in here, I'm going to try that for now. And maybe I'll come back and put I should have left a cross member or something in the middle there. Alright, that's what I'm going to do for that. We're getting close to being finished with our Pontiac. Take this artist brush and take our burnt umber color and highlight some of these rumpled areas like we did before. Blend the two colors in. Just want to randomly put it in some spots that you want to be darker, where you see crevices and stuff where you think it would be darker. Alright, for our final step on that, I think we'll put some really small dots, just some teeny tiny amount of dots, in a red, not a bright red, but this Tuscan red color that I like to use. Really, really small amount. Just to make it pop a little here and there. Not much at all. Put too much in some area and just dab it in. That's enough. I don't want to put any more. I'm going to call that one done and set it to the side. We'll look at it when we're finished with the other two. I believe that our green truck needs one more chestnut wash around our bare metal areas, just to make it look like the rusting is starting to happen. let that one dry. Next, time to glue our axle in place. We're just moving it to the bottom of the car since the engine was removed. And this will raise up the front end like there's no weight. Get this in place. And then I'll hit it with the baking soda like we did the other stuff that we super glue. I think that's pretty good. Alright, that should hold it in place. We'll let it sit for a little while and dry. Alright, we got the wheels glued on. I dusted everything off. I'll have you know, this is the first custom I've ever made with fixed wheels that don't roll. I'm totally against that, but since this is going to be just sitting in a junkyard, we're going to do it. I might flatten the tires. I'm going to go ahead and paint the axle out to match the chassis, and then we'll come back to it and take a look at things again. Alright, we're about finished with our green truck. Next, we're going to take a beige wash. This is just traditional beige. Any beige color will work. Same wash, 20% paint, the rest is water. We want to put our beige wash on everything that we painted black. This is why we painted our tires flat black, so they would hold this beige wash. If you didn't, the paint would just roll off those hard plastic tires. Putting that flat black on them helps this wash stick. And this is just going to simulate dirt and dust on the wheels and plastic. When we come back, we might have to do this a couple times to get the desired look, but we're almost finished with this one. If you don't have a beige color, you can use gray. Gray will work just as well. I still might go over this with a gray. Plastic on cars has a tendency to turn gray as it ages, so gray works good too. I went ahead and decided while I had the beige wash out to hit the tires on the Plymouth, so if they look a little different next time, that's why. They have the same beige wash as our truck there. While we're waiting for stuff to dry, I think I want to make this purple paint on the top of the Plymouth look like it's starting to wear off some. So I want to try to take this baking soda and just rub it in here and see if we can lighten it up a little bit. Give us a texture. And then I'm going to give it a wash with the chestnut color. And make it look like there's some rust starting to set on the roof as well. Just a small amount on the roof. Probably just do a small amount on all the flat surfaces. We'll let that dry for a while. In case you were wondering, this is how I'm going to flatten the tires. Be very careful if you try this at home. These halogen lights can burn you severely. And the glass can break and cut you even worse. Alright, I attempted to flatten the tires, but I underestimated how hot that light would get, and it actually bent the rims too a little bit, so keep that in mind. But that's okay. It's going to be sitting in the weeds. Probably won't see much of the back wheels anyway. But you can see how it's coming along. That's one way you can manipulate the tires to look flat. Probably easier actually on the Hot Wheels. These rubber tires are a little bit trickier, but it serves the purpose. Alright, one of the last little details I want to do today is take some flat black and paint these tail lights out like they're just missing altogether on our Plymouth. And that's gonna pretty much wrap it up for today. I'll get these taillights painted in. I'll paint these headlights out, give the grill a black wash, and then we'll take a look at everything and see how they turned out. Well, we got so busy today, I didn't even get around to trying to put any patina work on our forklift, our matchbox load lifter. I'll do that in another segment. Sorry we ran out of time, but I'll show you what we did accomplish. I think we accomplished a lot. Well, here they are sitting in their temporary spots until we get our diorama built. I'm borrowing the parking lot from the Bates Motel. Big difference in our green truck. Big difference in all of them. Of course, I would like to spend more time on these, but I'm sure the video's gotten quite long at this point. I always underestimate how long it takes to do these. It's just so much fun, I don't pay attention to the time. But here they are. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that bell. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.